Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Personal Rescue Podcast. Today, I'm Lee Vernon with the Holistic Wellness Center, and I've got Dr. Margaret Gavian with BluePeak. And as usual, we're going to dive into some topics today, and today's episode is going to focus on retirement and the problems that can arise with retirement with first responders and some things that nobody ever thinks about. And there's some benefits too. And we're going to talk about how to cope and manage and prepare for retirement so you can avoid some of these pitfalls. So thank you, Margaret, for joining today.
My pleasure.
And as always, we always try to cram a lot of info in there to hopefully get the ball rolling for people to think about things and hopefully initiate some change. So we'll get right into that.
Hey, looking forward to it. I know it's usually a fun topic when responders start to think about it, but I think there's a lot of hidden things people should be thinking about that they typically don't. So I'm excited to get into some of those today too.
Yeah. So yeah, it is fun. There make no doubt about it. Retiring after your career is something that we look forward to, but there's a lot of things we don't take into consideration, and then we kind of have to work through those things we don't consider and pop up. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about it because I've already lived it and trying to help others through it. And this is something that I think nobody discusses in our profession. And depending on where you're at, I can speak for my department. eh, There was not a whole lot there, and there's some things that bit me in the rear end that I'll talk about. And so, really, kind of what you rely on, or what I found out in my career is we talk amongst each other, and there's always those guys that are really kind of nerdy about it and will know everything that they can about it. And so they kind of are the ones that people gravitate to. But you have to take that for face value too, because there's stuff they may not know. And I found out the hard way too of doing the same thing of like, oh, so
Yeah.
excited. There's a lot to cover today, so we'll get right into that.
Yeah.
Um,
I think people usually get to retirement, and what my favorite thing is when I know someone's maybe a year or so out, like, where's your retirement countdown clock? And they'll pull their phone out and they'll show me, right? That's
yep.
a real thing. So a lot of people are excited about it. And then usually I try to catch people a year ahead of time if I get the chance, to start giving them a heads up about here are the things that should be on your radar. So yeah, I know we'll dive into those today.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, I'll start off, sharing, why is this, why can it pop up and be a problem for some? And I
Yeah.
think, when we talk about, we mainly focus with PTS and mental health aspect of first responders. And I look at it as, while we're employed, we mainly focus on, hey, how to combat that so we can do our jobs longer, better, and healthier, and combat the mental trauma that's associated with it. Nobody talks about once you retire, if you're not have some healthy coping mechanisms and you're not mentally, that foundation is not in place, then when you retire, things can actually be, I call it exacerbated, or actually grow and kind of spiral. And so those are things that we have to talk about. For me, I did, it was about 30 years total riding a truck. And from volunteer departments all the way up to 20 plus years with a full lead department at a metropolitan city. And so, I've been retired for 6.5 years. Now, my retirement was not, I would say, the normal of, hey, I'm looking forward to it. All I do is this, and then I run my time down, have my coffee. I always had from day one a plan, and this is something that nobody really thinks about. I was lucky in the aspect of, oh, got in at a very young age, at 18, and got on with my major department, pay department, at age 23. And I can remember vividly sitting in that oral interview, and back then, everybody was doing 30 plus years. That was just what they did. And I remember sitting there and going, so how long do you want to work? And I went, 20 years. And they're kind of like, that's it? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, why? And my response to that was, I'm lucky enough to get in here at a young age. I already have other years of service prior to this. I have the opportunity to do and learn and do some amazing things, but I don't want to just this be it. I don't want to be known for just, oh, all I did was this. And so I had the plan of I could retire in my 40s and go on to do other things and take that knowledge and experience and grow that. I didn't know what it would be at that point, but I did have a tentative rough game plan of 20 to maybe 23 years, get out and do something else.
Right, which nobody really, maybe some people, but that's a rare story, right? Most people get in, do the job they love, and they never think about what's going to come next because that's all they've been training and preparing for and living and breathing and loving. So then sometimes retiring can be a very stark awakening.
And I've seen, yes, and I've seen the opposite side of that of guys that did 35, 37, 40 years. And they got in at a young age too, but that is all they ever did. Live,
Yeah.
eat, breathe, the fire department. And I saw it that when it came down, the reason they kept going and going and going is because they knew nothing else.
Yeah, I
This
hear
was
that a lot,
it.
right? Some
One
people even want
dimensional.
to retire, but they don't have anything else. They're just like, I don't know where else my skills would be useful. Yeah.
And some of that, sets in that firemen, I'll be admitted, we can kind of get a little lazy on the fact of like, what else is there to do? I work the best job there is. Why would I want to do anything else? And so I understand that aspect, and the lifestyle that we live around the station is conducive to we live, eat, and breathe, the team, the guys. And then when they retire, I could remember talking to several, I call them, I guess I'm an old timer now too, but some of the old timers are like, why are you still here? And they're like, dude, I'm scared to leave because I don't know what else to do.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, okay, that I never thought about that. I always had a plan. And towards the end of my career, I had that plan in motion and the wheels were spinning. So for me, I'll be able to articulate having a game plan and putting that to work for the benefit of me versus not having a game plan and watching guys just totally retire. And guess what do they do? They come around the station after they're retired all the time, like, aren't you retired? Well, yeah, but I don't know what else to do. This is where I'm at. It's like, go home. Go be with your wife, your kids, go do something. And so that can be hard. That it's a drastic change for some. So yeah, I think we talked about key talking points for retirement. You and I had kind of, or I should say you had typed up, which I love, was loss of identity, the camaraderie, the purpose of why are we firemen and medics and law enforcement officers? We have a purpose, and so most of us are very good at our jobs, and so to find something you find so much satisfaction in, the majority of the time, and the camaraderie and the team building, and it is a totally different. It's not like I call it the regular world of, going to work 9 to 5. You're living with these individuals. You break bread and eat with them 24 to 48 hours at a time. You're close. You open up and have experiences, life or death experiences, whether it be with the profession, dealing with calls. There's just a different bond that people that don't do the job will never understand. And so there's a lot that goes with the profession as a whole that we find dear to ourselves. And then we retire, it's gone in the blink of an eye. So
Right.
I appreciate you writing up, and we're going to get into some of those aspects. So you
Yeah.
want to start? What do you want to
I
start
think
with?
there's one thing
Emotional?
I want to start off with because I think, and it depends, of course, what state you're in and what the different retirement systems are in your area, if there is one. But one of the things I think about a lot when I think about responders, especially where I am in Minnesota, is that we do a thing, and I may have even said this here before, right? When we have soldiers, we deploy them into war zones for discrete periods of time. We don't leave them there for 10, 20, 30 years
Yeah.
or even 5 years, right? We deploy soldiers into war zones and then we pull them out so that I mean, I'm not a military strategist, but right, from where I'm sitting, there's some strategy behind that about keeping people fresh, healthy, giving them time to recover, sending new people in with energy. And so, but we don't do that with our responders, right? They sign up for the job and then they're out in sometimes combat-like situations, and seeing the worst of the worst for multiple, multiple years upon decades, upon, multiple decades. And then we get surprised when someone doesn't make it to 55 or whatever their retirement cutoff is in their area, right? Oh, you didn't make it to your 30 years. Like something's wrong with you. And I always think that's just a fundamental problem that we're expecting people to last that long. So 20 years sounds ideal. I'm glad you had that plan for yourself. Like, yeah, I'll probably need to do something else by then. But I think most people get surprised by retirement where they realize, hey, maybe I'm done with this right now. And there's all sorts of conversations that go around of how do I know if I'm ready for retirement, right? That could be a whole nother conversation because a lot of times people get to the point where they throw their hands up or they're feeling the effects of the job so much that they just want to be done. I don't want to deal with another call. I don't want to deal with another kid death or whatever it is. Um,
Politics.
or the politics of the department or the city or whatever's happening, right? So people throw their hands up and then haven't done really any planning for it, or the retirement system, if they want to get out early, isn't really in their favor. They have to take a big hit for it. So I think we're going to touch on a lot of these topics today, but it's even if you're just 5, 7 years into the role, I think it's really good to at least have your eye on the prize of what retirement might look like and the things you need to keep in mind, even
Yep.
if you're young and just starting out. Because it's
Yeah,
a huge transition, life transition for anyone in the civilian world too. It's a huge life transition.
yeah.
But I think for first responders in particular, it's even bigger when you're so mission driven and every ounce of your being is about service. And then retirement is often earlier than 65, 70, what we're seeing in the civilian world. So yeah, let's,
Yeah, and I was blessed. I'm a second generation firefighter for the department I worked for. And, I saw my cousin who he was young and now he was a little crazy, drug out of lots of fires and did some crazy stuff. His nickname was Free Fall. And so it was like, that's not a good one to have. But, looking at his health, he had to retire because he had multiple strokes, heart attacks. He was working the fire department plus two other jobs. And I saw that and I'm like, my God, you're young and yet your health has deteriorated such because of that. And that was kind of the wake up call. And having gone to school for kinesiology and sports medicine and health, I was like, it came real apparent. This is a young man's job,
Mhm.
period. Physically and the mental side of things. And as you get older, your body cannot compensate as well as when you start. And so I already kind of had ideas like I don't want to end up like that. So let's
Yeah.
have a goal, try to meet the goal. So you're right
Yeah.
in
Whether
that
it's
aspect.
chronic injuries or the wear and tear of a physical job or the wear and tear of the emotional hazards. Yeah, they all
Yeah.
contribute. Yeah. Well, Lee, can you talk about when you transitioned out of your full-time role? What were some of the emotional challenges that came up for you?
So it's mixed. So for me, I had already gone through a PTS episode and dug my way out. And that was the real for me. It took 25 years of accumulated service to figure out, uh-oh, I self-destructed. And after coming out of that, I realized real quick, I was like, you know what? I'm lucky enough to recover from that and didn't lose everything and totally self-destruct in really horrible ways. So to me, I was like, that was close for me. That was an eye opener. And I went, this isn't healthy. And maybe it's time for change. Physically, I was starting to feel the effects. Even in my mid 40s, I'd experienced severe uh, heat exhaustion early in my career. And then we know with heat exhaustion, the body, every time after that first one, it doesn't take as much. And it just grew and grew and grew to the point of, physically I was feeling that, but the mental side of that. And so for me, I had already been planning and was working on, I had another job, I had my own business teaching firefighting and pre-hospital medicine. And so for me, I was getting that going and saw the emotional toll it took on me and the family, seeing the physical toll. The business was growing. And then really for me, it was kind of the department as a whole was going through some changes and not what I feel positive for the guys out in the field. And so for me, it was that I was at the end of some political stuff that I was just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm absolutely done. So for me, my transition
Question.
out, what's that?
Yeah, I have a quick
Yeah,
interrupted question.
yeah,
So, are you saying that when you got your PTS under control, you were able to go back to work? Like you went back to
yes,
work? Okay.
yep.
Well, so I
It
think
was
that's
in
just an important thing to highlight.
2017.
I think some people think that a PTS diagnosis or, oh my gosh, I had to go get treatment for whatever mental health stuff means it's a career ender. And I just want to highlight, even in your journey, that wasn't a career ender. You went back to work. Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to go back to work, and it wasn't the main reason I retired. It was
Yeah.
honestly the politics. It just,
Right. The organ
I
I like to
just
call
don't
that
have the stomach.
organizational stress. Call
But
the
it is
organizational.
stress, I mean, and I guess
Yeah,
that does have a
that's
mental
real.
aspect of, when you're not feel appreciated and kind of taken advantage of, you're just like, "Psst, I don't need it."
Hmm.
So for me, there was, honestly, I left angry at just how the whole process took place. And for me, it was one of those of like, I'll show you. And it was more, I didn't, I just left. And when I was done, I went in and I signed those papers and I was gone. Didn't turn back. So for me, there was anger involved at that process of I didn't leave like I wanted to leave. And
Hmm.
so for me, there was that, and I was just like, good riddance. Freedom is the way I looked at it. It was like, I'm free, free at last. And I never gave, and it was such abrupt. I'm talking, it was coming in and things went to hell in a handbasket, and within 5 days, gone. So for me, I left not like everybody else where they get their countdown and you get a coffee and a
And
celebration.
there's
It
a
was like,
cake and a yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
all that. And I was like, I don't want any of that. Matter of fact, I want to totally cut all strings. I was just angry. So, for me, I left directly from that and but again, I had a business that revolved around, I had 17 employees that were firefighters, medics at the time. I still had my tribe, different tribe, but I still had them. And it was just like, you know what? I don't have to deal with this nonsense. I can go do what I want to do, have the freedom to do what I want to do with a different tribe of first responders. So I had that. What I didn't realize at the time, and it took a while, was my initial tribe that I worked with day in, day out for years and years. That to me kind of hit a little home of like, I miss the guys. And when it came time for retirement, that was my one thing is like, I don't miss the job. I love the profession and
People.
I don't miss my guys and crew that I work with. And so for me, that was, it stung a little, but I had this other tribe, as I call it, of people I worked with. Honestly, it's people I worked with throughout my career that I was like, I'm just moving, kind of like moving a station. I'm going from one station to the next. and I just have the freedom then. And so for me, I didn't have that experience, whereas a lot of people are going to go through that. I'm with my crew, and you're with them, some people for decades and decades, and then you're gone. It's just gone. And so, to me, I got to miss that kind of mental
Abrupt.
torment, if you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
call it, because I had another tribe that we just went on about business. We were busy, and we we're teaching other first responders and rescue teams. So,
But you were out of the infrastructure of the station and the department dynamics, but you had friends and other responders that also still have a shared purpose and mission. So that is one thing that I think is so important that I know we'll talk a bit about today, right? Is just how important it is to have a sense of purpose, right? Because when we
yeah,
don't have that sense of identity, especially in first responder world where our Christmas tree ornaments are first responder oriented and the art on our walls and our license plates and our clothing all has
mhm,
emblems and that's who I am. That's my identity. And then when that goes away, and even the research bears this out is that when people's identity goes away in that way, right? When
yep,
their identity is tightly intertwined with that role, right, they're going to experience more distress because, well, who am I? Who am I if
yeah.
I'm not a firefighter? Who am I if I'm not a cop? What is my value? What is my purpose here? And I think that that can happen. You were lucky and you also had some foresight to plan, but it can happen either when you're going out on your own terms or when you're going out on not your own terms, which does happen quite a bit, either from
Yep.
illness, family dynamics, or getting pushed out, or having to resign, or who knows what. But yeah, that sense of identity and purpose is super important to people's mental health and well-being. And where are you going to find that on the backside of retirement?
And I tried to keep that in perspective of, hey, for me, it was like always about making a difference. I
Yeah.
responded to people's worst days. Now I don't have to subject myself to the mental trauma of those worst days because I've already been there, done it. I can work on preparing the next generation or others that volunteer and sacrifice and are on those of going, I've got a lot of knowledge and experience. My teammates and guys and gals that teach with me have a tremendous amount. When we put that together, it's nearly 200 years of just knowledge and experience. So we can just, instead of ride the truck, I can ride the car and go teach people of how to not make the same mistakes, learn from our mistakes, do it better, increase their skill set so they're going to be more successful and hopefully better than me at going to those worst days and those scenes and incidences. So I was able, very lucky in the fact I just transitioned to from a responder to an educator and
Yeah.
still have,
And
I got my own little badge. Here's my own
you
little
still
badge. I
had
still have something.
camaraderie. Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And your tribe, you still had camaraderie, which meant you dodged the bullet of isolation, right?
Yes.
Which I think people don't always dodge, right? That social isolation, which is super important. And we know, and there have been studies about post-retirement and the higher rates of things like depression, anxiety, and substance use disorders for responders compared to the general population. And this is, just me nerding out over here because, and I would dare to say that a lot of that is around the social isolation, which impacts
Yes.
our physical and mental health, right? So you already,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And so, just it was just a pivot. That's why I look at it as like responder to educator, doing the same thing, except now I don't have, see the ugliness. We can discuss it. We can talk about it. Um, I looked at it too on that mental perspective. Um, and I think I really want to try to get this across to first responders too, is there is a sense, there's freedom, and that freedom can be good and bad. We unfortunately lost a retiree 2 weeks ago to suicide.
mm,
And for me, it was okay. I did not know him, but I had heard enough of like, it wasn't so much. Yes, I'm sure the job had some impact on that because we all deal with the mental trauma. But what, I had what I was told, and again, this isn't confirmed, but it makes sense. And it's always been a concern, and I've seen it with others, is home life. The home life was not stable and healthy. And so you add the mental trauma of the work, you add the aspect of a not a good home life. Now you can't escape. You can't run off to the station to be with the guys and get away and just, oh, I'll just deal with it because I only have to be home, on my days off. And that's minimal because if you work a second job. So it's like I know individuals that the home life, marriage, relationships, whatever is not necessarily healthy, but they just kind of deal with it because you're gone. You're at the station, be with the guys, and I'll deal with it later. When you retire, there's nowhere to run.
Right.
And it's
And
like
then, yeah,
now you have to deal with those issues, and that can throw all kinds of, I call wrenches into play, and
yeah.
it can
It's
have a
not just a
negative impact.
one person, retirement isn't just a one person deal, right? It's you've been operating as a team with your fire crew, for example, and your household has been running without you, right? And now you're there, and kids and spouses have to figure out what do we do? What do we do now? Even adult
Yeah.
children, right? So
Yes.
to figure out it's kind of a whole team, just a new team dynamic. And I I was
You brought
doing
up a, go ahead.
oh, I know I was doing a some care for a department who also lost near me that lost a retired firefighter to suicide. And it had been years, enough years had passed that no one really knew that firefighter anymore. But it was very clear. First of all, those firefighters had to respond to him, which
Mhm.
was really unfortunate, and a whole host of unfortunate ways that that incident was managed that was actually traumatizing to the firefighters who showed up, even though they didn't know him. Um, but it also it made the mental health aspect and the retirement aspect come alive, I think, in a it's it's shined a light on the issues of, and everyone knew, oh, he was really isolated. Oh yeah, he came around the station sometimes, but we didn't really know him, so we didn't really know how to engage with him, and we felt bad. And sometimes we'd drive past his house and wave, and but we know he was really isolated and maybe, just turned inward towards himself. And it was really a sad thing. And I think that it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon.
No,
And something that we talk about that I hear all the time, well, that wasn't fire related. Or it was like,
it's a brother.
maybe not, but you're carrying a backpack of decades of whatever the job entailed, which is usually seeing some bad things. So it just compounds any internal sense of stress. So while it might not be, I'm ending my life because I can't get that one car accident out of my mind, it definitely compounds the issue and then exacerbates family problems, right? Which then can lead to more isolation and depression and substance use and all the things until we have really sad, sad outcomes like you're talking about.
And I brought this up. We had a another unfortunate death here back around Thanksgiving, and I got to talk with some command staff that I came through the academy with, and they're open ears and they're trying to do what they can. And it brought up a good point. And I've noticed this, and I've experienced. I know everybody else had experience. I mean, I'm not the only one. Nobody wants to talk about it, and I brought to them. I said, you know what? It's a damn shame that you throw us out like garbage. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? And I said, you treat us like garbage. You treat the retirees like trash. It's like when you're here, you're going to be held accountable for this and that. You deal with the politics and this and that, but you do a career that you love and a job that you love, and you have this belonging, camaraderie. And then when you retire, you hear nothing,
Oof.
nothing. I mean, in my 6.5 years, you know how many times anybody from the department's ever called to check on me? Zero. And, I show up because I do have the practice and I am working with first responders, many of them who I know through traumatic incidences, health, improving health, cancer. And, if they're in something, I want to be there for the family. Because the one thing I noticed was, yeah, you get these people in the white shirts, as I call them, show up. They don't know necessarily that individual, their family, the dynamics. And that was missing. It's like, who's there to support their families in need? Because the ones that were there, always there supporting them, can't right now. They're in, they're dealing with something. So I show up and I'm like, that's a place for us. Why are the retirees are not called, mentioned, hey, we got nothing but time, most of us, after you retire. Why are you not utilizing the retirees in one way, shape, or form to help other retirees? Be there for when you have these unfortunate circumstances and you need support. These are the men and women that more than likely know those individuals, or if not, understand the mental impact it can have of having your guys or guys
Yeah,
that have
I
done
think
the
that
job there to support.
I've
And
I've been in a lot of departments and talked to a lot of people that are doing amazingly good stuff. Amazing chiefs, amazing white shirts, um, some other leaders in the industry that have a good keen eye on health and wellness in the fire service. And everyone says, "Oh yeah, we got to do something for retirees. Oh yeah, what should we do for retirees?" But it's always this thing that's sort of on in the parking lot because there's a whole bunch of other stress that's in the ongoing daily operations and running understaffed and right overtimes and not having enough that they're just trying to keep things moving and then they keep thinking, oh, we really got to do something, but then it hasn't really happened. So yeah,
yeah, and
it's
they were great about it. They listen, they're like, we never really thought about that. And I'm like, you have a huge resource of men and
yeah,
women that would do nothing more than to be there for their brothers and sisters. Yet we don't get phone calls, we don't get checked on. The only time we hear from anything from the department is when you die. I'm like, well, that's a little late, you know, or something catastrophic happens. I'm like, that's not the time. And so at least they were open to that. We'll see what comes of it. But I think that, and I use that because that's, that crosses your mind of like, wow, I put in this many years and yet nobody calls and checks.
I
And
sacrificed
I'm,
my kids' games and I had to deal with my spouse who wasn't happy with me and
yeah, and it's not
lots
just
of
the upper
sacrifices.
staff. It's, we're guilty. I'm guilty. We're all guilty at that foundation level. And I hear from all the guys that are like, yeah, man, I need to do better. I'm like, why? We do a piss poor job of keeping in contact, but I find that I try to pick up the phone, text, whatever, reach out to those that I worked with. But the bigger disconnect that I find now is the younger generation of staff, like you said, that does not know the guys that created the path for them to get here. I walk into a station now and I get it. You walk in, you're like, holy shit, I don't know anybody. Who are these young kids, there is that of like sense of like, oh my God, I don't even know this department anymore. And they look at you like, who are you, old man? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm the one that worked here for, a decade plus before you ever got here. So, you got to disconnect on that aspect. And I think that the profession as a whole has to do better of the younger generation needs to kind of, I say, don't forget the guys that paved the path and road for you to get here, that help give you that knowledge, the experience, the mentoring. When they're gone, now it's your responsibility of, hopefully you had a good mentor in the department. And when they're gone, you know what? You need to take the reins now of going, hey, you know what? You did such a fantastic job of helping me. I want to make sure I'm there for you. I need to give back to the guys and men and women that paved that path. And so I think as a whole, there's no one person's to blame. We're all guilty and need to do better, but we need to do better of taking care of each other and definitely better preventive instead of reactionary of, oh, so and so's in the hospital, so and so died. Oh, I guess I'll show up for the funeral. And the conversation's the same every time at the hospital and the funerals. We got to quit meeting like this. You're right, we do. So what are we going to do about it? Then it's just like kind of goes to the wayside. So,
Yeah. So you're
it's a
talking about
bigger,
two things, right? So we're talking about one being the retiree, right? And the what people can do who are looking at retirement and upcoming retirement and how to do that well. And two, what can we do as departments, organizationally, and at a larger scale level about how to support retirees so that they can ride off into the sunset in a healthy way and enjoy and feel appreciated for the good work that they have done, right? So those
Yep.
two different things. So what do you think can help people prepare mentally and emotionally for the transition to retirement?
Have a realistic expectation of you're going to go through a change. And if you expect that nothing's really going to change, the guys are going to call, we're going to go out and do stuff, you're not, more than likely. Have a realistic expectation of you are choosing to move on to the next phase of life, whatever that may mean for you. Understand that the other guys are still there. They have a job to do. They still have their lives. You're going to be replaced. And then that bond and relationship, which is vastly important for the new person coming in, is taking your spot. It's not intentional, but I think you just have to have an understanding of you are moving on to your next phase while others are not. Doesn't mean you can't be involved, doesn't mean you can't keep that relationship. It's just going to be different. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
I think to prepare for that realistically, you need to have something on tap of in the way of a hobby. Maybe it's a second job, but I don't like to use the word job. I like to use the word maybe it's a profitable hobby, something that you just enjoy doing that you don't look at as a job. You wake up and go, man, I look forward to doing this. So having some sense of, as we talked about, purpose, it's going to change. The lifestyle, everything about your life is going to change. So if you can set yourself up for success on understanding that, reaching out to some of those retirees that have been retired are going, you know what? You always asked me to go play golf or go out and do this or go fishing, go skiing, but I couldn't because I had to work. Now you're free. Reach out to that retirement group that's there because guess what? They're lonely too and they have time. And so now you can kind of go do those things that you kind of put off and never did because we always had the excuse of work. Now we don't have that. So I
Yeah.
think having an understanding, and it's hard for people, change is hard. Going from what's easy to, man, I got to get out there now and reconnect with people. Yeah, you got to put a little effort. So I think having a realistic understanding of you're going to need to put effort into this change. It doesn't
Right.
take a lot, just a little bit, but
You have to
understanding
have a
that
plan, right?
a
You have to have,
plan and just exercise some discipline and effort to go, it's going to be different.
yeah.
And that's okay.
It's going to be different. I get concerned and I understand why people say this. They say, "Well, I don't know. I'm just going to take a couple months off and just see how it goes and then I'll figure it out later." And I'm that kind of attitude always gives me pause while I understand the feeling of it and the desire for just I need to put let my foot off the gas and just chill for a little while. I think firefighters are really wired, and all responders are really wired for action and purpose, right? So
Yes.
before you retire, a good question to ask yourself is something like, what's going to give me purpose when there is no
And
job here, right? When that
here's
job's
what I
gone,
hear,
what's
and I'm
going to give
like,
me purpose?
I have guys all the time say they're big golf guys. They love golf. Maybe they love traveling. And all the time I go, what are you going to do? And he goes, dude, I'm going to play golf every day. I'm like, is that so? That's going to last about 1 month and you're going to get
Mhm.
bored real quick. Travel, great. Are you prepared financially to set yourself up to travel as much as you want? Because let me tell you, travel keeps getting expensive. And the next thing you know, if you have these aspirations and didn't plan, you're thinking, I'm going to take a trip every month. And you get in there like, oh my, the budget isn't going as far. Maybe the financials, cost of living, expenses. And now you're like, man, I was planning on traveling once a month and now I can only go maybe once a quarter.
Sure.
What are you going to do in that other time? And again, everybody kind of has this lackadaisical. I agree with you of like, I'm just going to go do this. I'll be able to do this. And I'm like, that's not a plan. And you're going to find out real quick, you'll get tired of that pretty fast. And the next thing you know, I'll check with people a year later. How much golf you playing, man? I hadn't played in 6 months. thought you're going to play golf every week, so, and then they're lost. Like you said, there's this, what do I do? I don't know what to
I
do.
think structure is really important, right? So it's not like you have to account for every hour of your day. Well, at 9 o'clock,
No.
I'm gonna get up and walk the dog, and at 10 o'clock, I'm gonna do this thing with the grandkids. It doesn't have to look like that. But I do think that responders are used to structure, right? So
Yep.
structure and purpose. So having some structure, right? Without one, people kind of go into this drift, like what we're talking about, and you can
Yep.
drift into plenty of bad habits. Like, oh,
Yes.
maybe I'll have a beer, and it's noon somewhere, right? So I'll have a beer, or I'll just hang, and now I'm just doing house projects forever and ever. And I don't, that's not fun, right? Like my wife might be super happy about it, but I'm not really getting a sense of satisfaction or enjoyment out of living, right? So people can drift into some unhelpful places too. So establishing a structure, even with hobbies and routines, like whether it's exercising, going to the gym, right? Having scheduled friend meetups or
Yep.
some sort of social outside of the home activities, that's usually pretty good too.
And I always tell them, find a hobby. I'm amazed that, a lot of us just work in our careers
Yeah.
because we're trying to make ends meet. And it's like, I wish I had a hobby, but I can't afford a hobby. Now that you're retired, find a hobby. Find
Yeah.
something that brings you joy and gratitude every day that you just enjoy doing. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Um, Hobbying and finding time for yourself. I think that's the other thing we never learn to do in our career is to find that quality me time and be able to utilize that. I mean, it's my time now. Do something that brings joy and gratitude. And I think so many of us just work, work, work. And then when you retire, you're like, oh God, I got a lot of me time. I don't know what to do.
Right. And
They
that's the
really
deep
don't.
note right there. People don't know what to do. And then and especially for people who've been conditioned to keep moving,
Yep.
right? Like I'm on a fast, I take care of this part around my house and this family member and this community member, and now I'm responding to calls here, or I'm on shift here, right? And it's pretty quick. And so when it gets quiet, and this happens a lot for retirees, is that, and people get surprised. I get calls all the time. They're like, I was doing fine for 38 years. And now all of a sudden I can't stop thinking about that call from way early in my career. It's like kind of creeping in. And I think when their nervous systems slow down, number one, they got some sleep, right? They're starting to regulate a little bit differently and kind of not the high adrenaline, fast-paced environment. And when they
Yep.
slow down, and so I'm not saying this is bad, but be prepared that some of the stuff that you've been holding at bay for a while or that's hanging out in that very full backpack starts to creep in, and people start to like, I was fine and now I'm having memories. Now I'm having nightmares. Why? I was fine until retirement. Right. So people, I do think, need to be prepared for that possibility. It doesn't happen for everybody, but I think when things get quieter and calmer, it is sometimes a thing that happens.
And I'm gonna nerd out on the physiological side of it too, of like, when you're a fireman, that dopamine rush that we're always chasing, waiting for the tone. Then you get the call, you see the smoke showing. All right, we're getting to have fun. The car, you're living off of dopamine for decades. And then
Yeah.
when you sit at home and there's no tone, there's nothing else, your body's still in that fight or flight for there's a time period in there of like, dude, where's the tone? What's going on? And you're finding a, we call it that coping aspect of I'm chasing the rush that I no longer get.
Yeah.
And so
That's
now
that's
you
when
start,
stop can feel weird. Yeah.
it does it's just like, oh my God. And then the realization of like, I got to find something else that is healthy to compensate for that. Otherwise, like you said, we'll find those bad habits because we're bored. I'm looking for that dopamine rush that I'm no longer getting. So it does take the body and mind, I'd say 6 to 12 months to fully kind of reset to a healthy level. And so I think people need to expect and understand your body mentally and physically is going to go through changes, like you said. Some of it you will not be able to understand or comprehend why, but that's some of it. There's a physiological, chemical component that is changing now that you're not being fed that. And there's some adjustment period. So I agree 100%. Add to that something I've heard from other responders of, man, they retired, but their significant others got to work another 10 years. And now they're pissed of like, why do you get to sit at home and do nothing all day and I got to go to work? It's like, oh, sorry about that. That's a dynamic that can also creep in. It's one thing if you can both retire. I don't know many that can retire at the same time, but that is a dynamic that I hear a lot of people going of like, I retired and I'm doing pretty good, but man, my significant other is pissed that I don't have to go to work. They do.
And did you
And it's
have
like,
any unexpected challenges happen in your household when you retired?
honestly, challenges, no. I was lucky in the fact of going through my PTS. What it taught me was how to really talk to each other with
Hmm.
my wife. We learned how to have brutally honest, uncomfortable conversations. Then after you figure out talk, they're really not uncomfortable. We can just have honest, open conversations. And so for me, it was more of like, I knew I have 30 years. We met at 18, got in the fire department at 18. There's a third of my life that we missed. Third of my kids' lives while they were young, I missed. And for
Yeah.
me, now it's a matter of like, sweet, I can make up that time. Not that you can really make it up, but I'm like, I'm going to really focus now on being a better father, husband, picking up the slack that my wife took up for 3 decades.
Yeah,
Now
you
I
can
can go, you
plug
know
back
what?
in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that transition factor of, again, all right, now I'm home. I can't use any excuse of, well, got to go to work. Sorry, you got to deal with it. Nope, I got the slack. I'm going to pick up that slack that you've been carrying because I should.
Yeah.
You
Well,
you you deserve that.
there's a couple of points I think baked into what you're talking about, which I think are important. One is understanding your family already had a routine, right? Like for
Mhm.
years, they figured out how to function without you when you're on shift, right?
Yep.
And then suddenly you're there, right?
Yeah.
And so suddenly and maybe you're there trying to help and fix things, right? And they're like, no, this is how we do things in this household, right? Like we've been
Mhm.
doing this just fine without you. We're good, right? So just understanding that the family has already had a rhythm without you and respecting that rhythm before you just try to kind of come in and bulldoze and say, I'm here, like we're going to do all the
Yeah.
things now, right? And then the other one is what you mentioned is about communication, right? So making sure to communicate with whoever's in your household, your spouse, your partner, right? So, and that's not always an easy thing to do, but really talking about the expectations, what it's going to look like, how much space someone needs, the personal space that they're going to need,
Yeah.
because now you're home all the time, breathing down their neck, right? Or not, but, or whatever the shared response, like it's a new chapter, right? So how are you guys
Yeah.
going to manage that now that you're around more? Um,
And
that's also
and
why
what
it's important to find things to do outside of the house so you don't drive
Well,
everybody
and
nuts.
I was home. What changed when my medical business, I'm still on the road. And so there's still the dynamic of dad has to leave. So, for me initially, yes, I go through periods that probably that first year and a half or two. There's busy periods where we're on the road teaching a lot. And so it's like, oh, dad's instead of the fire station, he's teaching. So everybody, that dynamic didn't change too much. It was like my slow periods of the year where it's like dad doesn't travel for a couple of months and it's like, when do you leave again?
Yeah, what are you doing?
It's like
We're
we
still
did
here.
have a little, I will say, yes, there was a little bit of that of kind of weird. You're here for 2 straight weeks. You ain't gone anywhere. But it was for us, it just morphed
Yeah,
flawlessly into, yeah, we had to adapt. And yes, we made those changes of dad, we got it. That's not how we do that. Oh, okay. Roger that. Um, mine was a little different. I'm in a unique circumstance. I'm still with my tribe, different tribe. I still travel. So I'm away from home, just like being at the station, but instead of typically a day, 24 hours or 48. My travel usually is a week at a time. So initially, when that was going, when I just did that, dad's gone. Um, and then I'm home for extended. The nice part is being back home, and it wasn't like, all right, I just got through teaching and now I got to go to work for another 24, 48, and then come home for a day. That actually made life easier because it was like dad goes and teaches, and then when he's home, he's home. And so
Hmm.
we found our rhythm in that. And now it's even a bigger benefit. Now that was when the kids they were in public school, so it was like couldn't go. They had school. Now, since COVID, they've been homeschooled. Now we're in a totally different, um, I
Rhythm.
call it
Yeah.
chapter of life. Of now, they travel with me. My wife does architecture and stuff like that, so she can work on the road from anywhere. And it's now when I travel, it's even I get more enjoyment because we're together as a group of like, y'all are old enough, you do your schoolwork while I'm off teaching during the day, mom's doing her work, but we're together. And then when I'm done teaching, come home in the afternoon and we're going to go do cool stuff. We're going to go learn history. We're going to get outside and do outdoor activities. We're going to travel. You're going to get to travel the United States and see things, or even Japan. I got to go to Japan. They're getting to see things as a family because of the profession I now do. So for that, that even changed the dynamics because now they travel. We very rarely are we apart. And to
Yeah.
me, it's
And not
like it's
everybody is going to
morphed.
have, yeah, not everybody's going to have that particular lifestyle, right? But what you're
No.
highlighting is the chance to reconnect with kids and family, right? Even when they're
Yes.
older kids, even when they're grown-up kids, right? So it meant you had missed a lot of time with them, right? And so
Yep.
now is a chance to kind of work on rebuilding relationships, and that doesn't always happen overnight, right? And
No.
that just means showing up and being consistent, not expecting everyone to be all excited about it all the time, right? but
Right.
but now you have a chance to show up. So that's another thing I think about for retirees in general is, yeah, focus on reconnecting and rebuilding any relationships that you haven't had the chance to put the kind of energy you wanted to because of the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think when we made that change, it just brought us together closer as a family.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, now when I travel without them, it's rare, but when I do, I'm like, man, that kind of sucks. I'm used to having them with me. It's
Right.
kind of you miss that. But at the same time, it's like dad goes on, mom's in charge, mom's spoiling us. So dad, go teach something. You don't let us eat the this and that when you're here, but when you're gone, all that's out the window. I'm like, fair enough. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, there's some positives that come with that. That reconnection is a big thing. And for some people, if your home life is not set up for that, then that could be a totally different ball game that doesn't go well and
Right.
cause
And I think
problems.
sometimes responders will retire and think, great, finally, I can relax. And spouses will be like, great, finally, now we can get some things done or we can do all those things that we've been waiting for. And it doesn't always work that way, right?
Yep.
So having a conversation around what are your expectations? How is the family going to be? Right? Having some open discussions about what retirement is going to look like, not just for the responder, but for everybody.
Right. And I think too, for me, that retirement, I keep going back to it's the freedom aspect of now you're pretty free to do whatever you want to do. And you can choose to not take advantage of it or make the most of it. To me, one thing I never even dreamed about doing, and it morphed over my 6.5 years of retiring is, all right, I'm teaching, but I also now have time for my brothers and sisters become ill. I still got the phone calls. They're dealing with something. All right, cool, I'm there. And finding out, having gone through PTS and having gone through that change of retirement and dealing with those things, I kind of had some information and knowledge. And I found myself reaching out or being called to respond. And, it led to, gee, what can we do about cancer since it's so prevalent? Gee, what can we do about preventing PTS or helping one heal with PTS since it's so prevalent? What can we do with health and wellness to cardiovascular disease? And next thing I know, I'm like, went back to school. Another almost 3 years back in school to go, okay, I can actually help my brothers and sisters instead of just being physically there and they go, what are you doing? I don't know. I have an answer. There's an answer now if you're interested in that. So that led to again that purpose of, to me, purpose could be just educating constantly. You can't constantly run a truck, you can't run the calls, but you sure as hell can constantly better yourself through learning something new, education, getting out there and finding a purpose that brings joy and gratitude. And so that, more from teaching, now I'm like, all right, I teach still, but the practice is now I have a truly gratifying role with my brothers and sisters, active and retired, on when they have an issue medically or mentally, the phone rings and it's like, bro, you understand me. What I'm in this position. You understand the body now and the brain better now. Do you have an answer? Yes, I do. Or do you have a resource? Sure do. And so to me, that was something that, again, kind of sitting back, and it took time, and it took time to look at the bigger picture of what do we need for our first responders? What's lacking? Well, retirees don't
That
have
was
a lot of
you
options.
finding your purpose, right? That was you redefining your purpose and your mission,
Yes.
right? Not everybody's going to
Redefine.
refocus on service in that way back into the community. But when you think about what strategies can retirees use to stay physically and emotionally, mentally healthy? We've talked about purpose, we've talked about identity, right? What are some
I
of the
think you
strategies?
I think you need to stay, since we're so passionate about our brothers and sisters, most of us, there is that, just because you're retired doesn't mean you have to be disengaged. Find a means, and I always tell most retirees, sit back now. You don't have to answer to any red tape. You don't have to answer to the politics. And it took a while. Sit back and go, where can you help your brothers and sisters still that will bring you that camaraderie, that interaction, and that gratitude of, man, I'm still, instead of responding to the call, I'm gonna respond to my brothers and sisters in need. And for
Mhm.
retirees, I think there is a wide open, I mean, it's a open playing field of, there's so many services, resources, mentoring, counseling, you name it, that is untapped. Nobody is offering this. You've been there, done it. Find a means to find something that's of interest to give back to your brothers and sisters, and then next thing you know, you find yourself that group. You find your tribe again that you never really left. You're just kind of separated for a while. You find that you get called back into that, and it's pretty effortlessly. And so to me, I think, again, you don't have to go back to school for any of that. Just find where we need help. And there's so many avenues that, again, I look at, this is my personal opinion. When I was hurting with PTS, did I want to go to the city? Absolutely not. Where did I go to? I went to my brothers and sisters, retired and active, and found answers and support. Well, guess what? Now you can be that support. Now you can be that resource that your brothers and sisters are going to trust over some of the other stuff out there. And again, I know there's phenomenal departments that have great programs, but that is not the norm. I think that's the minority still that's growing. But again, firefighters, who do they trust? Other firefighters. And so finding how can you be a resource, whether it be um, on a group for, hey, if you got, cancer, somebody that's battling cancer, man, put a support group together for them on making meals, maybe going and cutting the lawn because they can't physically get out and do that, putting up Christmas lights, helping the spouses with stuff. um, you may be going, hey, let me get with the retiree group of that process, and learning every small detail when it comes to retirement. So then when your brothers and sisters are like, man, I'm thinking about retiring, call so and so because that individual knows the ins and outs of every detail on that. Next thing you know, you're gonna have people, you're gonna be with firemen all the time going, give me the lowdown. Cool. I'm going to tell you what you need to know. I'm going to help you plan as we talk about. I'm going to help you prepare. So just become a resource. Find something that, you can nerd out on and
Yeah.
know a lot
And you
about
care
or
about. Yeah.
care about, or simply just, again, meals, getting together. Maybe, I always talk about there's nothing once a year our department throws a retirement barbecue. I've yet to been to one. Um, because usually when it's going on, I'm off teaching or I've got something going on. It'd be nice if maybe, nobody does this that I'm aware of get a retired group of once a month. Let's get together to play golf, maybe go have a lunch and a beer, do something together. There's no reason of when I was in the department, we always did, well, not in the later, but early part, did trips. We did
Hmm.
firefighter trips, firefighter cruises. Well, guess what? Now you're retired. You got more freedom and time. Put something together of going, you know what? I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to get this together once a month. We're going to go do this. Maybe it's a trip. Maybe it's just a gathering.
And again, that kills
There's,
two birds with one stone, right? You've got mission,
yeah.
you've got purpose, you've got camaraderie, you're socially connected, you're right. So that's hitting, even if it's not always giving back, right? But those are you're hitting all the key points about what keeps people physically and mentally healthy, right? Staying active, right?
Yes.
Keeping a routine, having a purpose, staying socially, clipped into friends and people that you trust and know. And
And I
doing
think
something
it's,
that's challenging, like that stretches you a little, right? That pushes your mind, right? Sometimes people start to slide real fast on the backside of retirement, because they're not mentally engaged or having to use their brain anymore, right? So learning new skills, those types of things can be super helpful.
and reach out to your departments and go, hey, I look, where's a great place to, I always looked at least in my department, it was like training was a revolving door because it was one of those places that they yanked you off the truck. They were forced to go down to training. And yeah, you did the training, but as soon as your 2 years were up, you're like, I'm out. So you had a constant revolving door. And that's sometimes good and sometimes bad. Go to the departments and look at it going, hey, I'm retired, but gee, I just retired. I'm up to date on your policies, your procedures, how we train, how we operate on the fire ground.
Right.
Be a resource and go, would you mind me coming in and being a mentor to the
Yeah.
academy and help
Right.
teach the guys? And, if you can work to where you get paid, even better. But if not, again, you're going to physically and mentally, you're going to have to stay up on policies, the changes, new tactics, new ways they do things. So again, that's another, like you say, mentally and physically staying engaged in something you love without having to deal with most of the other stuff we don't like. You're still going to see your guys and gals that you used to work with. Uh, Find a way, reach out to the department because I'll tell you now, the departments are overstretched. They don't have the resources, they don't have the people, they don't have the money. Cool, we're retired. May not necessarily need the money. So go find and work with the department to find how can you be utilized as a resource to the men and women, retirees or active. And again, it just takes having a conversation with the right people and getting that going. So I think there's a lot we fail to sit back and look at the opportunities that are right in front of us, that all it's going to take is pick up a phone and ask. And a lot of times I rarely get told, hey, I see you're lacking this. I could be a resource. Would you like some help? It's usually yes, like please.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we kind of just because you don't want to mess with certain things doesn't mean you have to. You can work
Yeah.
it to your benefit, and keep you mentally and physically engaged
Right.
on
I
that
mean, the
level.
important point is to keep contributing, right?
Yes.
So whether it's mentoring younger firefighters or doing something within your department or helping recruits, or you could take a leadership role in the community, right? Coach, you could do a veterans group. There's all sorts of community things that someone could do, local government stuff, right? I know sometimes people are burned by the local government things,
Yeah.
but things like starting a business or a side gig, whatever that is, or just volunteering for causes you care about. Disaster response teams, for example, right?
Yeah.
Auxiliary roles, if those exist. Just keep contributing.
And I look at don't discount, and I hear this sometimes with firemen too, like, well, I was just a fireman. I just rode the back.
Yeah, I hear
I'm
that
like,
too.
do you realize in today's day and age the immense opportunities that are right in front of you that pay, a lot of these pay very well with just your knowledge and experience of getting out there and using what you've done for 30 years and finding a niche. And a lot of these niches, again, as a retiree, I always talk about the other thing expectation wise that I talked about earlier is the change, but everybody goes, well, I'm going to retire. I'm set for life financially.
Yeah, no,
Okay, I hope the best. And yes, there are some guys and women that, man, they don't ever have to work again if they don't want to. But I will tell you from experience, the vast majority of us, that money doesn't go as far as you think it will. And the next thing you know, you're like, ooh, it's getting a little
yeah.
tight.
You got to know your
Um,
numbers, right? You got to know
and
your
yeah,
numbers.
knowing that and life changes. It could be maybe it's an illness with somebody. Maybe it's fine. You got to take care of parents, whatever the case. Your knowledge and experience, there are opportunities out there in the civilian world and the firefighting world too, as a consultant, teacher, educator, software, you name it. There are financial lucrative opportunities that await you. So don't discount that. Well, I was just a fireman. Let me tell you something. We're a dying breed. Just look at the recruitment numbers. They're down across the United States in a lot of places. Our knowledge and experience is valuable. It's just, can you find that niche? Are you willing to get out there and be a little uncomfortable and find a niche and put yourself out there to be able to, get reimbursed or handsomely, make a nice living on the side working part-time. It doesn't have to be full-time. For me,
Right. No, I think that some people get forced kind of back into some sort of work or job because
yes,
they really underestimated their expenses, right? So you want to prevent the panic working, right? Like, oh
yes,
crap, oh my God, I thought retirement was going to be enough, so I gotta go I'm gonna start driving Uber or whatever it is, right? So you want to definitely do your financial planning, know your numbers, you have a peace of mind, you prevent those sort of like panicky moments and we're like, oh crap, I gotta go get a job. Then you can plan for things like the healthcare situations, healthcare planning with family members or yourself, right? And then you can truly enjoy retirement rather than just get by, right?
yeah. And firemen are pretty good at being entrepreneurial. Most of them run their own lawn
Yep.
business,
Yep.
personal training, you name it. So I'm like, get out there. Not everybody is cut for that, and that's okay. But there's opportunity to where you don't have to go, for many of us, work 80 hours a week. You could work part-time to go, you know what? I gotta contribute, earn a little money, and then I got these other days off. I can go and play golf or travel, do whatever I want to do. And the benefit of that too is if you have a significant other that's still working, man, that goes a long ways when you're like, honey, got to go to work today. She's like, yeah, so do I. It's like, sweet. That can help on that aspect too, because it can be a sore subject with some of, what are you going to do today? Nothing.
Nothing.
It's
Want to
like,
watch a
really?
movie and maybe
Yeah.
I'll
So,
go to the
you
grocery
can kind of kill two birds with one stone with that of staying engaged, making a little money, and you're still doing something you like versus, like you said, that panic. If you're panic job hunting, you're probably going to do something you despise, don't like, but you need the money, so you're desperate. And the next thing you know, that could exacerbate and make things worse of like, this is not what retirement I expected it to be like. This is not what I intended. This is not what I wanted to do. Why? Because we didn't have a plan.
There
And
was no
so,
plan. So definitely sit with a financial planner and actually if you can do that, and I know some cities and some programs, some resources there are out there for financial planning, but you got to do it before you retire, right? So know your number. I talk to a lot of people who are like, well, I should probably retire, but I don't know. I'm like, well, go get informed. Start knowing your numbers. If you've got to call HR or you've got to talk to the pension company or whatever it is, know your numbers and start doing the budgeting, the planning. And I know here in the state of Minnesota, there are a lot of resources available to anybody who's active duty. But the second you retire, all those resources poof go away. So knowing that ahead of time and utilizing those resources, like, oh yeah, we've got free financial planners at our fingertips, but that goes away after retirement. So get the resources and start planning. I always talk about a year at least ahead of time, get all your health screenings done,
Yep.
right? So that if, God forbid, something does screen positive, at least you're still connected in a way and you have here at least a lot more support than you would post-retirement.
Yep. And I look at too, you have resources, like you said, within the department, and then when you leave, that it's different resources, and we don't necessarily know where to turn to. I also caution people too on there is a fine balance um, of I know guys are like, I'm miserable. I hate going to work, but I got to work because I want to, get that amount of money. And then I see them when they retire and they die a year later.
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
how'd that work for you? And so I
Yeah.
think there also has to be a balance of, and this is where that planning comes out of, you can make at least take the information and make an educated decision on what's best for you. But I go balance life with money because the
Yeah, I
money
call
can
that
be
the golden
gone.
handcuffs. That situation you're talking about,
Yeah.
I always talk about the golden handcuffs. I have that conversation a lot. People say, well, I've just got 12 more years left and then I'll retire. I'm like, yikes, you're not doing so well, right? This isn't going well. You think you can just limp along for another 12 years? Like, I don't see how that's going to work out. And if it does work out, then you become that horrible statistic you're talking about where people keel over, within a month of their
And
retirement, right?
and
So
think about what you're doing to the men and women that still got 20 to go. You're the negative nanny running around there, and they're like, Jesus, it's like, is this what I get to look forward to? In a way, it's demoralizing and demeaning to others around you that you work if you're one of those miserable people, but you're just hanging around for the dollar.
And I
And I'm
get
like,
it. I understand why that exists. It's not always the individual's fault, but
no.
get empowered, get informed. Maybe you don't have to work that like just all the time. Like, oh yeah, but I got 7 more years left. Like, okay, is that really how you want to live those 7 years? Is just drudging and dragging yourself from shift to shift? So at least know what your options are and make a choice, right? You have a choice. Sometimes,
Yes.
I've known people to take hits because they're retiring early. And like I said, people are already expected to work too long, but they take the hit because they prefer the quality of their life, right? So, yeah,
And I think
sometimes you have to make some hard calls, but
to experience, having gone through life, I lost everything in my 30s. We financially lost everything and started over from zero. And
hmm,
that was a humbling, but I wouldn't, I would do it again because it taught me. I was the department and working a second job, and it was money, 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 money. I was making more. Growing up poor, I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. It was amazing, but I hated the work, especially the second job. It wasn't fulfilling. It became that. And when we lost everything, it was a great perspective to sit back and go, you know what? This house is sticks and stones. It can be replaced. Um, do I have a roof over my head and do I have food to eat and can I get by? Yeah, I sure can. Do I really need all that? Did it bring me that quality of life? Sure as heck didn't. And for me, that was a huge turning point of money is not everything.
hmm,
Yes, we have to be financially comfortable to afford cost of living and to, not be on the street or, if you get sick to be able to afford those things. That's what we work for, to be productive and be compensated. But at the same time, to me, money's like way down here. It taught me quality of life and happiness. Money will not bring that. It takes care of problems, but it doesn't bring happiness. And a lot of times it brings even more problems. And I think firemen can sometimes get so focused on, if I stay those another 7 years, I left a huge amount of money on the table, an astronomically amount of money that if I would have just stayed another 7.5 years, it would have been life changing. But I was mentally to the point of, I don't like coming to work. And to me, it was like you said, why would I waste? I will never get that 7+ years back if I just sit here to collect a dollar. Now, that was me. And in my circumstances, set myself up to be able to go, you know what? I don't have to do this. I'm going to go do something else. I know there's some people that may not be a reality, but for most of us, we do have a choice. It's, do you want to put forth the effort and maybe have to do some uncomfortableness in the temporary, but in the long run, there's just money can't buy mental happiness. I'm sorry, having gone through what I've gone through, to me, having that mental happiness and being able to find that gratitude and just everything will be all right. It'll be all right. To me means more than the dollar. I know that's not for everyone. But I really stress that to the men and women of like, if you're that miserable at work, don't waste your life chasing the dollar. There's plenty of opportunity out there. You can do things that will bring that happiness. To me, there's nothing worse than just wasting your time because you'll never get it back. It's gone. Yesterday's gone. Today's almost gone, never getting it back. So maximize that time. And I think we tend to forget that. And to me, as a first responder, we're reminded on a daily basis of it can be gone like that, never get
Yes.
it back.
And
So,
you're replaceable, right? If you die in a car accident tomorrow, there's gonna not as
oh,
soon as it can be, there's another butt in that seat, right? So this as much as we
absolutely.
love you, as much as we will say the brother and sisterhood, right? There's a job to do and somebody's gonna do it, right?
That's
So
right.
about your
So,
life.
I think it's definitely a difficult dilemma of balancing finances and quality of life. And everybody's, what their definition of quality of life is different. So what works for me ain't going to work for everybody else. But
Yeah.
hopefully, we can convince people to sit back and take a hard look. And maybe sometimes that quality of life is, maybe I need to lower my standard of living so I can retire now
Mhm.
versus being miserable for 7 years and not getting that back. If I just make a few adjustments with that financial planner and they go, why you're wasting so much money over here doing this? If we just cut that out and we make a few tweaks and changes, you could retire next year. And now you got that quality of life that you're looking for. You got a good balance. So I think, yeah, retirement is not this easy of, I just want to go down and sign my paperwork. There's
Yeah.
a
Then all of a
lot
sudden
to
I'll
it.
look 10 years younger next time I see everybody because I will have slept for the first time in 30 years. Right? I mean, you do get a
Yeah.
little bit of an instant facelift from the people that I see that after retirement, I'm like, oh man, they don't even look like the same person. They're like glowing and vibrant. Like you look
Well,
great. I'm sleeping.
yeah, that health side that we hadn't talked about, of the
Yeah.
wellness side of taking care of ourselves. At the stay, I'd say it's a balance. At least when you're at the station, I always looked at it as like, there's a gym right out this door. All I have to do is take my butt out there and go to work. And so for me, that's a big one. A lot of people, once they retire, just stop working out. I'm like, why? Why'd you do that? Hopefully you were working out and staying active and treating your body right while you're in the profession. Just because you retired doesn't mean that stops. At the same time, we got guys and gals that weren't maybe as active as they should be, and their health
Right.
has declined over their career. Go, cool. Now you have zero excuse as to do something as simple as just get out and walk. Walk you. If you can get that 7 to 10,000 steps a day, you cut your metabolic chances for disease down by like 60% by just walking. I think you should do more than that, but I'm like, now you have the flexibility and time to take care of yourself. And I think one of the first things you should do when you retire is take a step and you get your medical testing and everything done. Take advantage of that before you retire. You're going to get all those results back. Now, when you retire, you have the time to focus on you and your health. So, if we've got some issues that need addressing, now you got the time and hopefully the financial and the resources to go, sweet, let's invest in. I want to use this retirement to, I need to fix some things for my family, for my significant other, and for longevity for me so I can maximize this retirement. So I can live 20, 30 years and not just be a couch potato and wither away. So to me, I think that health and wellness of getting out there now and finding some of those hobbies, because now I don't have to worry about, well, gee, if I get hurt, I can't go to get on the rig. I'm on light duty. If you twist an ankle or something like that, then no big deal. You're not out anything. I think health and wellness gets put to the back burner a lot of times because it's like, I'm not riding a truck. I don't have to carry all that gear and weight. I ain't picking up patients. So I'm just going to eat and be merry and be happy, fat and happy. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to, you're not maximizing that retirement. So I think health and
I'll be a
wellness, and
50
we,
year old
you and
pretty
I
soon.
know so important on if you're physically not in tune and taking care of your body, that will have a negative consequence on your mental side of things. They work coincide with each other. So I think, dedicating yourself to some regular exercise and mental healing with meditation, exercise, diet, or I call proper eating lifestyle. That's another one that changes. Think about it. You're at the station, it's a different world of how we eat at the station. You got the wagons and the meals and the snacks hidden in your food locker to now home of, gee, that's gone. And maybe now you're the one that's cooking. Okay, sweet. I'll take that because now I can kind of guide how my eating lifestyle is going to go. Um, Diet, I think, is a huge thing that nobody ever thinks about on that health and wellness side. And I think as we get older, it's even more narrative. It becomes more critical so we can enjoy that retirement. Otherwise, nobody wants to hobble along, pain and inflammation and not be able to do anything. That exacerbates the mental side of stuff. So, taking care of ourselves, I call it, people go, I go, now's the time to be selfish. It's okay to be selfish here of take care of yourself. You got the mental and physical capacity to do so. Take advantage of that. And that gets ignored a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So I know we could talk forever about this, but switching gears a little bit, what do you think that departments can do to better support retirees? I have some ideas, but we've talked a lot about what the individuals can do, and now what do you think about departments? What could they do to
I think
support?
departments really need to think about having some sort of support system in place by retirees. Not, if it
Oh,
was me, just my personal opinion, I'm like, the best thing you can do is have some group
like a peer
function or
network,
what.
peer
Yeah, a
retire
member that's a
retiree.
retiree that is there for the guys or gals looking to retire and can kind of mentor them towards, hey, go see this person. Oh, you hadn't seen this? Go get this person. Hey, have you had your medical check? You need to go get that done. There, that doesn't really exist. So having some type of support structure made up by men and women that have already gone through that process, I think would be a great first start.
Great idea.
Uh,
So some sort of formal retirement transition program, right?
yeah,
And this is more than the pieces of paper HR might hand you,
yeah,
right?
no,
It would be
no.
like financial planning, mental health
Those guys, you
resources.
put in that support structure is like, hey, have you talked with them? No, okay, well, let go. You need to go see them. That's, I would rather that and go, sweet, I'll go see them even though I don't want to because he said so. He says there's an important reason why. Here's why you want to go see them instead of just whatever. I'm leaving. No, I'm telling you right now, you need to go see them. And here's some things you need to ask, maybe some things to be
Right.
aware of. Um, that's a great start. I think putting together some type of uh, support group too that maybe not for that. That's the retiree, that process, that
Yeah, that's
transition
the
process.
transition process. Yeah.
But have something also there that's for the retirees of like, hey, you did your time and you served this department in this city and you gave and you sacrificed. You know, we got a group, we got a place for you, and maybe do something more than a barbecue once a year that our department doesn't even have anything to do with. It's like a whole separate retiree group. Um, find something in there, whether it be, I look at, you could do those community service events. There's always some men and women that love doing those community service. Instead of taking a unit that's busy running calls and all that, why not utilize some retirees to go to those
That's a great
school
idea.
functions?
Or the pub ed stuff. Yeah. So
Oh,
keeping
yeah.
the retirees connected in some way and giving them a job, right? Or a role, right? Maybe it's retiree luncheons, who knows, right? Or maybe it's a
Yeah.
very specific pub ed job, or maybe it's there's an official liaison, retiree liaison who heads up and creates a Facebook group or so some sort of social media group, something like that. Who knows? But just to stay connected in
Yeah.
some.
I mean, there's tons of community. The community is constantly would calling us, hey, can you do that? I'm like, no, we can't. You call Pub Ed and Pub Ed make that determination. But there's a lot of times they were called no or told, the community's told no because we don't have the resources. The men and women, I mean, okay, they're going to be at your event for the next hour. That means the next unit is 5 minutes out. Now the response time instead of 2 to 3 minutes is eight,
Right,
10 minutes.
operationally, it's too challenging. Yeah. So if you
But if
utilize the
you
retirees,
had this, I'm like, what
yeah,
a great resource to have that there are people that love that pub ed. I hated it. I was never a fan of it. I just didn't like it. But there were guys that I worked with. They're like, dude, I got it. You just go show the equipment on the truck. I'm gonna run these kids through here and deal with all that. And I'm like, sweet. Uh, those guys would still love to do that, even though they're
yeah,
retired. So,
sure,
just
sure.
finding a purpose to make up for the vacancies or not being able to serve the community to the fire department's full potential? Why are you not utilizing these guys over here that have been there, done it? They know what to do. So,
Sure.
I think that's another idea aspect on that as well that a department could do. Those are the two I came up with. What
Yeah.
you got?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're making sure to offer financial planning resources. We've already talked about that, but pensions, insurance, all the benefits can get super confusing. So agencies should offer some sort of pre-retirement financial planning session. Also, the mental health resources should be really clear because retirement can stir up a lot for people.
Mhm.
Even identity struggles, I think people don't realize that you could see a counselor to help with who am I now that I'm not a firefighter. You don't have to see a counselor just because you're struggling with depression, anxiety, or PTS, right? You counselors are and therapists love to talk about these kinds of issues about, hey, I want to how am I going to how am I going to use my time? What am I going to do? What is my mission? What do I care about? How am I going to plan for the future? So utilizing those resources, but departments should make those known because you and I've already talked about retirement suicides of retirees, and we want to try to avoid that, right? So those are things that I can initially think about. And, another idea is even looking at I know I can already hear all the chiefs in my mind not like this idea, but like, could you phase people out, right? Like, could you give them part-time roles, people part-time roles or mentorship roles to phase out? And I know people do this, they kind of make this up as they go along sometimes, but is there a way to make the transition smoother so it's not like you're riding a truck for 30 years and then the next day you're just not and you have no one and nothing, right? So what are those other roles that could possibly be filled? I love your idea by retirees, or could you phase people
I,
out?
you just had a light bulb go off with exactly what you said. You could retire and then bring them back in as, civil servant type or not a civil service, and not under civil service as a firefighter, but as a civilian, of a great thing, something we always struggled with in the department is um, all the tools. Like you always had stuff break from the fans, saws to the small stuff that we used all the time. And when it went out of service, it was like, well, tag it and we'll get to it when we can get to it. They usually had one or two guys that were responsible for small engine repair for the entire department. And it's like,
Yeah.
meanwhile, this damn thing sits out of here that I need and utilize, but well, I got to wait on somebody to bring it down or wait for it to get fixed. To me, we're so mechanically the aptitude on mechanical stuff is a key part of that department. Guess what? We maintain and run that machinery on a daily basis. Who better than to have the guys that are mechanically inclined, love tinkering, to bring them on part time and go, man, hey, maybe Monday, Wednesday, and Friday you come in for 4 hours, and we're going to just send all the little stuff that needs to be fixed and repaired. You do that, and I can now repurpose my guys that have bigger problems to solve on the mechanical side of maintenance. I can send them, they've got now more time to go deal with the bigger stuff, the ladders, the trucks, the stuff that, hey, the engine's down because we blew a hose. All right, send him instead of, well, I'm dealing with this. I'll get to that later. Um, I'm just thinking of things that we love to do, get our hands dirty, so to speak. And it's like, that's a perfect thing of we deal with that stuff. Why not incorporate some of those retirees on a part-time basis to do maintenance? Could be
Again,
station
killing two
maintenance,
birds
could
with
be
one stone,
mechanical.
right? It's a service to the agency, and then it's also giving people purpose and giving them that they're not losing their camaraderie. They're still a part of something that they've cared about and devoted themselves to, right? So it's kind of an informal peer network, right, of some
Hmm.
sort, which is we all
Yeah.
know peer support is super helpful. Excuse me.
I think, and even if for whatever reason, the budgets are always go, oh, we don't have money for that. Okay. Would you allow me to volunteer and come in and do that? I mean, again, it's a way to get guys in. I'm thinking of what do firemen hate? It's like not having stuff working and I'm waiting on somebody. What's another hose testing? Oh, we despise that. Unloading all that hose, testing it, loading it back up. Why not have some guys come down and go, man, we're going to do some hose testing over the next 2 months. Would you mind coming down to help out on some of that? I'm sure you'll find a few guys that go, I got nothing else better to do, and I get to come see the guys and hang out at the training field or at the station. Absolutely. Again, just offer some opportunities to the men and women that have served some type of role, whether it be voluntary or maybe if it's a potential some type of compensation one way or another. But having the option and availability would go a long ways versus what do you got for me? Nothing. Go away. you
Either
know?
enjoy retirement, see you never. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, just right there spawning some ideas that maybe somebody will hear and go, that's a good idea. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I know
So
I have been a part of some retirement groups and hope to do some more in the future, to do some very much more targeted group support to help people transition. So more on that to come. I hope this conversation's got me thinking about what to include in that, but things on identity and purpose and taking care of the emotional stuff that maybe resurfaces, how to talk to your family again,
yeah,
those sort of things.
I think just the overall with retirement, what I tell people is like, there is a beauty to it. You're free. You're free to do it pretty much whatever you want without somebody, and you can't do that. Because, I mean, we do live under rules and regulations and an image. And sometimes that can be bad. It's like, well, now you're free. Let's make use of that freedom in the right way. Don't go out there and discredit what you've done in your career and discredit the profession. So there's a balance. There's a key with that freedom. You can go good or it can go bad, but you're now free to do the things that maybe you weren't allowed to do or couldn't do when you're employed with the department. At the same time, just have realistic expectations and a plan. you do those, kind of incorporate those three things, then retirement doesn't have to be this drastic, negative experience that some people find unexpectedly. And it just takes that. And so to me, I think incorporating those three things in there, that's a good start.
Fantastic.
So, well, we've talked for about 2 hours, hour and a half
Yeah.
or so here. Anything else you want to throw in there when it comes to, reading our notes here? Because we covered a lot.
No,
That was kind of the closing thoughts on that of how to wrap that up. And again, I want to and stress to people, you got to do what's best for you. What's best for you ain't going to be for the guy you worked with or other members in the department. We're all unique and different challenges, different battles, different goals and things that we want to do, but do what is best for you. You've worked your rear end off. You've earned this right and opportunity. Do what's best for you. Just be prepared and have a plan. Um, and I think, like you said, be ready for some things to maybe pop up. And if you're cognizant of that, then you address it versus ignoring it. Ignoring it will just make it worse. But there are going to be some challenges, but just take care of you and do what's best for you. That's the best thing I can tell people from having gone down that road.
100%. It's your time to enjoy, so enjoy it. Take care of yourself, right? You
You
get to
earned it.
focus on yourself, your family, your hobbies in ways that you previously weren't able. You get to sleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing. And also, too, there is a benefit to being retired, and you're now free to see other natural healing alternatives that maybe with the department you're working with prohibited you from doing. So,
About
you
that
may
in
now
another
be
podcast.
free to look at those other natural therapeutic options that were off limits before that actually do contribute to some healing. And so, if you find yourself in that arena, do your research and seek some of those options out. You may be surprised at how well they work if done right.
To be continued for sure.
That's right.
Good conversation. All
So,
right. Well,
all
thank you.
righty.
Thank you for sharing your story and all of your wisdom from your career.
Well, it's just one perspective, and I'm sure there's a million out there, but hopefully we'll shed some light on this and help somebody moving forward. But thank you for joining me today and guiding. And I always love it. You're a wealth of knowledge too, because I love when we do these little episodes because you're fantastic. You're so damn organized. I love it when I see the spreadsheet because you're like, you will set that stuff up and you bring up things where I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. That is a absolute fantastic question. I love the us bouncing these ideas and questions off of each other's heads, and I got to give it to you. You're way more organized than me. I'm kind of fly by the seat of my pants.
You're a
So,
firefighter, so I get it.
but I love it because yeah, you make me think about things that I hadn't really thought about before, and maybe a different perspective. So I appreciate your input on this, and we're going to have more for people to come, and we're going to wrap it up today. And y'all take care of each other. Click the links or the comments below. You can find Margaret at Blue Peak, and you can find me at the Holistic Wellness. If you have concerns, if you have questions, if you have a topic that you would like for us to dig into and do an episode on, please put that in the comments. If you're needing help or assistance with something, reach out. If you don't know where to reach out, we're down there. We can guide you to resources and options that are available to you. So please utilize this. This is for education, and hopefully we can help you if you're in need. And until next time, you take care of yourself and you take care of each other. And from Lee, appreciate it. And we'll see you next
Great.
time.
Next time.
Bye.